Well, hey everyone. Just to quickly do an overview of what I'm going to talk about today. First, do a quick introduction and background on why did I decide to do a webinar on this topic, a little bit about myself, and then I'll get into a list of the 7 things. There are more, but I think these are a really great 7. It was also my favorite number growing up, so I picked that. And then Q&A. We'd love to hear your guys' questions at the end of this. So just quickly, a little intro and background on myself. Todd Keats, I lead our account management team here at Beeswax. I'm based in New York City. I'm currently in Chicago, weathering the pandemic. I previously worked at Meta Markets and the Rubicon project, so have a nice sort of background in ad tech. And frankly, Beeswax was the first DSP I've worked for. So I had a new lens kind of going into this whole thing, which is part of the reason I thought about this. And my job at Beeswax is really to focus on strategic alignment with our customers once they're brought on board. And so, I have tons of conversations. I talk to customers all day long about what they care about, what they need, and thinking about how to solve their problems. So that's what I do. So why this webinar? Over the past 4 years, I have learned a ton about what DSP customers want and care about. And what I've learned is that no DSP is really right for everyone. We certainly try to be, but it is challenging. And I hope that you can walk away from this with a framework for evaluating what DSP might be right for you. And as Paul said, maybe it's Beeswax, maybe it's one of our competitors. I'm hoping that this will help folks figure that out. So as I mentioned, this is kind of the conundrum that DSPs have to deal with as they're building their products. There are infinite number of features that can be built. And trust me, I hear from customers every day about things that we could do to help them. And I feel for our product team in trying to evaluate what to do. And I think the reason that you see so many DSPs in the market is that there are so many features and there are so many different types of partners and formats and mediums that you can focus on, and you can go really deep. And frankly, DSPs make bets and they make decisions on where they think that they can differentiate and offer value to different types of customers. So again, this is why we see niche players that focus on mobile app or CTV or even specific verticals on customers because they need to focus in specific areas. I would love to play this song. I love karaoke, but I will spare you. So before you RFP a DSP or a set of DSPs, here are the key things that you should sort of ask. These are very high level. The first is, what is my business focus? So do I have a lot of data? Am I focused on optimization? Am I focused on a specific vertical? Am I a custom creative company? What am I doing? The second is, how familiar is my organization with programmatic? Do we have people that have experience in a number of different areas? The third is, what kind of ad ops resources? And this kind of goes back to that. It's like, do we have people hands on keyboard that can manage this, or are we going to need some help? Fourth is, what kind of technical resources? Because this could open up some opportunities for you as you think about what type of DSP do you want to work with, given all DSPs sort of have different levels of sophistication or technical advantages, if you can take advantage of them with your own technical resources. The fifth is on the partnership side. So as I'll get to in one of the 7 considerations, there's a lot of things that DSPs will do for you on the partnership side. And then there are a lot of partners that they may not integrate with, and you can actually do some of the legwork yourself. So it's something to consider. Basically, do you have people that can do this? And then the last, which is an important question, is, are you going to self-service this, or is this going to be managed serve? Really important when you think about what types of DSPs might be a good fit for you. Okay, let's get into the 7 things. So the first thing is inventory access. I think this is absolutely critical. A lot of DSPs will talk about this, is what types of inventory do they have access to? And again, sort of going back to the niche players, if you're a mobile app DSP, you're likely only going to be integrated with mobile app inventory sources. So some good questions really are to ask, what are the inventory sources that someone's integrated with? Are they direct? Are they indirect through other channels? A lot of DSPs can sort of masquerade as a DSP, and they're actually a network. So it's really great just to ask them, who are you integrated with? Is it direct? And where are you, sort of how are you integrated? The second is formats. So DSPs can offer a number of different ad formats, from native to video, CTV, app, et cetera. Really important to ask them what they support. Not only from an inventory perspective, but also what types of creatives can they support. So this is another key pillar. And it really just depends on whether you think you're going to run all of these formats over time. And it's good to get a sense for like how much inventory is available for each, because one might focus on app, but maybe they also have mobile web. There's a lot of different combinations that can be available. The third pillar to this is geos. So DSPs will need to have data centers in regions across the globe if they want to serve in specific countries. So definitely something to consider. Ask your DSP for avails. They should be able to share them with you. And frankly, one of the things to remember is that a lot of times, like, the avails that you'll see from a DSP may not actually be everything they can get, because they could be throttled by their exchanges. So oftentimes it's just a baseline and they're able to do it. If they have integrations with those exchanges in the region, they can dial those things up. And then the last, quite an important point, is the transaction types. So DSPs traditionally open market, that's what they're focused on. Obviously, private market has also become an important piece. The third is programmatic guaranteed, as that picks up steam, which we're certainly seeing at Beeswax. Ask whether they can support it. It's just important to know what types of transactions you can conduct, as your customers are going to be asking for those types of things. So point one, inventory access. Point two, consideration two, is partnerships depth. So I've listed a whole bunch of different types of partnerships on here. I'm not going to go through all these. I've come up with some examples. So, first party DMP, cross device, custom optimization, all sorts of things. I put a red line where I really think there's sort of table stakes, which is above the line. Pretty much all DSPs should have those types of partnerships built into the platform. Below the red line is sort of a little bit of differentiation and niche. That's not to, some people may disagree with me. I think ultimately it depends on, again, on the types of customers, but ask your provider about if they have these types of things. The other thing that's really important to ask is this partnership just a certification, or is it actually built into the platform? So I'll give you one example. On the attribution side, there are a lot of companies that you can partner with where you can get that attribution data automatically back into the DSP reporting. Or the DSP could just say, hey, we've had folks run, attribute with other attribution partners using their, pixels or whatever it may be. Those are kind of two completely different things. So just kind of important to note, what is the partnership, and if they can give you documentation, that's even better. Third point is optimization. I think really the crux of this is, do you want to set and forget, or do you want to do it yourself? And there's pros and cons to both of those things. And neither is good nor bad. It really depends on what you want to do. The questions you should sort of ask yourself when you're thinking about this topic are, what are your KPIs? Do you just want it to work? Or are you willing to put some effort in to try to improve against whatever the baseline performance is? Do you have any sort of data that might be able to improve that performance, whether that be some interesting first-party data that you collect on the when you purchase impressions, or even segment data that you have proprietary that might be helpful for you to optimize? And then the fourth is, do you have resources? Can you apply either data science, ad ops, or technical resources to automate some of these things? Because different platforms will give you different options in terms of what you can do and how much control you can have. But again, it really is that trade-off of control versus complexity. And it's totally fine to say, we have high top of the funnel KPIs like video completion or clicks, and that can often be automated by by the DSP. But when you have more custom metrics or KPIs that you really care about, it can be much more challenging. And frankly, you likely will want to apply some resources. So just ask your DSP, what kind of things do they offer? Fourth is reporting and analytics. And I think the real question is, how granular do you want to get? The real table stakes is aggregated reports. Pretty much every DSP is going to show you some aggregated reports, different report types, whether it be geo or inventory or platform, whatever it may be. Those will be restricted on purpose. I know from working at Meta Markets for 4 years, that the data can blow up pretty quickly and be costly and be slow if you don't do that. So they'll restrict you, not because they're trying to hide anything necessarily, but just because those things can be expensive. And so that's table stakes. You should be able to get all that information from the DSP. The next sort of level up is thinking about analytics, which can provide an additional layer of transparency to help you with things like what's going on with my campaign right now for troubleshooting purposes. So really helpful, and a number of DSPs may have tools to help with traders and other folks on the team to monitor what's going on. The third sort of layer of this is forecasting, which is really challenging. It's a big problem, and frankly, I've heard a lot of customers say, "Hey, so and such platform has forecasting, but it doesn't work very well." That's because it's a hard problem to solve. So certainly ask your DSP, what sort of forecasting tools do they have? Again, none is going to be perfect. They're all likely going to be some sort of estimation. But that's sort of the next layer up as you're thinking about what can you sell and deliver against. And then the last sort of the top of this is raw logs. And the reason I put it at the top is because if you have access to this stuff, you can do a lot of it yourself. So it gives you the additional flexibility, but it does require some work. It requires the resources to be able to actually consume the data and do something with it, whether that's data dropped to an Amazon S3 bucket, or we have a partnership with Snowflake. There's a lot of different ways to access it, and a lot of different DSPs offer log data. So if you can access it, you think you're going to want to, it's definitely something you're going to want to ask and consider as you sort of choose a DSP or multiple DSP partners. Okay, fifth, as I was building this deck, I love this image. I kind of talk to folks, I joke with folks all the time. It's like, we're building this plane as we're flying it. Our customers are using our product, and we're shipping new features weekly, monthly, very rapidly. I think an amazing way to actually figure out more about a prospective DSP is just ask them for a list of features or products that they've released over the last 12 months. It's going to tell you a lot, and it's going to three important things. One is, how quickly do they move? You'll see it. Like, what are the features they've released? How big are those features? So that's a really important point, is like, are they still developing interesting features that help their customers? The second is, are they on top of industry change? We've had a lot of news over the last couple of days with Google and what's going on over there. How quickly can they adapt to what's going on? Really important question as you sort of consider the future of your business, and really important to have a partner that sort of understands and can mitigate against those types of things. And then the last is, it might tell you a lot about what types of customers they're trying to serve. You'll see it in what they release, who they're trying to serve, what they're really focused on for the future. So this will tell you a lot. They should be able to tell you. A lot of folks will have release notes that are public. I hope they would. Number 6, so 2 more, I think I'm right on time here, is UI API. I think the big question is, can I just automate all of this? We've seen at Beeswax a lot of customers leverage our APIs to automate trafficking, the update of campaigns. And that's not to say that the folks that are doing that today aren't necessary. Frankly, it will help them do different tasks that might be more helpful, whether that be optimization, deeper analytics, other things that can really move the needle for campaigns. And frankly, like, we've seen a number of UIs, they're all sort of the same. The object hierarchies are similar. I think you can get access typically to a sandbox I think the big question there for the UI is, can you do sort of bulk edits and bulk updates? Because those are the things that are going to save you a bunch of time. But really, it's going to be like a look and feel, and can you do things with very minimal clicks? But again, I think thinking about APIs is really the future of how a lot of folks are going to integrate with DSPs. A lot of DSPs are going to have public-facing docs. You can send those to your technical teams if you have them, but definitely something to consider. Also, there might be APIs that they don't talk about publicly or are more niche that you should ask about. Say, hey, do you have REST APIs? And then do you have any others? Are there any special things? We've got some, that our folks use that are really advanced and we don't really talk about unless we think the customer is going to need it. So just something to ask as you talk to prospective DSPs. And then the last is sort of service and support. I think having gone through this for 4 years, working with a ton of customers, some who've been very successful on our platform and some who haven't, I think the real crux of the question is just being honest with yourself about how much handholding you're going to need, how much service and support are you going to need. You should be able to ask the questions of sort of like, what tiers of support are available? How do I get answers, timely answers to my questions? Like, can people jump on the phone with me? And frankly, a lot of this can be done with documentation. So don't sleep on that. They should be able to provide it to you and it can help you out. But really the question is how much help you're going to need in different areas, whether that be help with procuring supply deals, help with creatives and sort of the ad operations piece, technical sort of support related to integration, or maybe it's just simple things like, hey, can you show me some best practices? There's usually layers of support available. In my opinion, it's always great to choose the best layer because to me, this is actually the most important thing when you think about what DSP you want to go with. It can make a mediocre technology platform an amazing partner for you if the team is great and helpful and timely in terms of how they help you work through issues. So again, service, the last piece. So just to recap, 7 things to consider. Inventory access, number 1. Partnerships depth, optimization, reporting and analytics, product focus and speed, UI and REST APIs, and then service and support. You'll probably notice I didn't have one thing on here, which is price. I don't think that's the most important thing to consider when looking at a DSP. All of these things, in my opinion, would go before it. Certainly it is a consideration, but frankly speaking, if you can check all these boxes, I think it's actually worth, they're way more important than price. So that is it. I think I did it right in 15 minutes.
You got a little bit over, but we're not going to penalize you for that. So, and looks like most people stayed for it. So
awesome.
That's a good sign. So we do have a few questions. Thanks for submitting them. If you want to ask a question, use the Q&A feature and we will get to as many of them as we have time for. First question, would you recommend using multiple DSPs or should clients focus on running activity through one partner to manage bids and supply chain optimization more effectively? Given that optimization was spelled with an S, I think this is coming from the UK.
So I think the reality of this presentation is it does depend. I think there can be advantages of running with a single DSP, particularly if as you use more, your teams are going to need to get used to more. You might have to do technical integrations with more. So there can be some operational efficiencies using one. But again, it depends how deep you are in a specific niche or vertical, because there can be cases where a mobile app focused DSP is a better choice if that is a lion's share of your business than a sort of omni-channel DSP. So it does depend.
All right. Next question. I think I understand the first half of it, but I've sent a clarifying chat question for the second half of it. So we'll see if he follows up there. Can you address the potential for predictive analytics?
Potential for predictive analytics. So in terms of optimization, I'm trying to think of the...
well, he's saying, and also the RTB. So that's the part I've asked a clarifying question about. So if you're out there, if you can just chat me with what the rest of the clarifying question is.
I think that, so I'll take how I'm interpreting it, which is on the optimization front. So I think that there are DSPs out there that are great at building algorithms using predictive analytics. And so that's one aspect. And I think there are folks where you're going to kind of need to bring your own data to the table in order for it to work. Others, it's going to be a little bit more of a black box. That's okay if that's what you want, and you sort of want to set and forget. They're going to use those types of things. That's one area of predictive, sort of analytics that I think this person might be talking about. The second is probably on the ad operations side of things, which is basically like helping you understand what's going on with your overall business, what campaigns are working and not working, and sort of what things can you do. That is a whole other area. And frankly, there are some really sophisticated DSPs doing that kind of thing. So certainly something to consider. And it really depends on, how hands-on are you going to be? But it can be very helpful.
Okay. Next question. What about these situations where, the DSP kind of has its own walled garden and its own gated inventory? Aren't you going to have to continue using at least their DSP for that purpose?
Totally. And that's where I think we see a lot of customers who use multiple, right? Which is one of the things that some DSPs will offer is data that you can't get elsewhere. If that's valuable to you, absolutely, that makes a lot of sense. And so I think there's value in that piece, and I wouldn't steer you otherwise if that was valuable to your business. So this, again, I think the key point to make with this presentation is it's not to say that you should choose one. There may be reasons to choose multiple. I think if you could do one, it can lead to some operational efficiency, but you could miss out on some aspects of data that somebody else might offer.
Definitely. Next question. If my client is asking to test new DSPs, do you have any recommendations for how to set up robust tests? They are most focused on improving KPI efficiency.
Yeah, that's a good question. Our solutions team focuses on this a lot as we have folks wanting to run tests. I think best practices in doing this, I think coming to it with a framework of exactly what you're trying to achieve, if you have the specific KPIs in mind, also trying to set up the campaigns in such a way that they're equal in terms of how they're enabled and targeted. That's another point. I think probably the biggest key is time, right? So a lot of people will say like, hey, I'm going to run a 2-week test on this platform or that platform. In some cases, it's going to take more time for that performance to improve. But I think beyond that, sometimes it's nice to think a little bit beyond, like, did this campaign perform a little bit better on this platform? And that kind of goes back to, what are they doing in the future? What kind of service and support do they have to help you navigate sort of different things as the industry evolves? So hopefully that sort of answers your question. I think sometimes that can be quite narrow if it's just like, I'm trying to improve my click-through rate by 10%. There can be more things to consider.
All right, well, that is the end of our Q&A. I want to remind folks we are going to be doing some more webinars this month. Our next one is next Thursday, the 11th at 12 p.m. One of our customers, Chalice, has driven true brand lift with what they call a persuasion algorithm for a pretty famous political campaign. So that's all I can say about it now. You can sign up with the link I just sent over the chat. And so hopefully we'll see a lot of you next Thursday. And Todd, thank you. That was really helpful. And it's good to have you back on the show. And we'll see everybody next time. So stay safe. And thanks for tuning in.